And now for more discussion, we're joined once again in the studio by Rob Kep, Director of Economist Corporate Network. Thank you so much again, Rob. So
thank you, Tracy.
Now oil prices have dipped below the big 30 again.
Yes.
Are oil-producing countries panicking yet?
Well, it depends on who you qualify as oil-producing countries and what you define as panicking. Number one oil producer in the world today is the United States, and it isn't panicking. China's in the top 5. Canada is too. Saudi Arabia is maintaining its cool. Russia is on hard times. Other OPEC producers are on hard times. Venezuela. So it depends, but I think it's those countries that are more dependent on oil sales for their economic growth, they are hurting, and they certainly feel a panic mood.
When oil exporting is your only economic growth engine, I guess there's no way that you're not panicking. But people are saying that oil-producing countries, traditional OPEC countries, are handling this crisis much better than other countries. For example, they can actually produce oil for a lot cheaper, so they can weather this low prices much better than a country like Russia. Do you agree with that?
Yes, that's true, actually. In fact, it's not only OPEC, like Saudi Arabia, has a very low price point that it can sustain. U.S. shale producers, although they're on tough times, they're pretty much resilient to a lot of the fluctuations.
But let's talk about Russia. What should a country do now? They just have this anti-crisis program they just put together and issued. But is it going to help, and what does it really mean that they're going to tap into their sovereign wealth fund?
Well, it'll be interesting to see how these things play out. I mean, the government of Vladimir Putin is hardly very scrutable, so it's difficult to know what's really going on. However, I think the very notion of the name, anti-crisis, indicates this is reactive instead of proactive.
Indicates that there is a crisis.
There is a crisis, and they're scrambling to deal with it. They really, if Russia wants to truly grow sustainably, it's going to have to fundamentally change its economic policies and its geopolitics as well.
And somehow the European banking system's crisis is having an impact on Russia as well. I guess they heavily depend on exporting to European countries for their economic growth.
There's that, and the European banks are exposed to a lot of energy companies that are active in Russia.
Right. Let's talk about the geopolitical situation in the country. Some people, not particularly in Russia, but in the Middle East as well, among oil-producing countries, many experts actually say, you know, right now, this is a very interesting point. They're saying that the ongoing oil crisis, not oil crisis, but this supply glut and low price crisis actually could be a problem solver for a lot of geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. Do you agree with that? We actually saw Saudi Arabia and Iran come to the same table and having a conversation. That's crazy to think about just a couple months ago.
Indeed. I mean, it's what the Middle East could really benefit by is something other than a dependency on oil, right? Diversifying their economies, liberalizing in a effective means their societies and political structures. So getting away from too much reliance on oil would all be good for that. Certainly ISIS does not have the same funding it used to enjoy from oil at over $50 a barrel. However, I think we can't rely too much on depressed oil prices to solve the Middle East issues.
It's deeply rooted religiously, historically.
Exactly.
It's not something that can be solved
I think it's going to
overnight.
go beyond what we see in the current
Or perhaps
oil market.
economic reasons will pull these people together. We actually have a conversation.
Certainly is helpful. And like you say, I mean, the fact that Saudi Arabia and Iran are now talking and that could reduce tensions, particularly in areas like Syria, Yemen, and so forth, that's great.
Well, thank you so much for all your time. All the best.